My name is Celeste Harper, a sophomore majoring in public policy at the University of Oregon. Throughout the semester, I counted down the days until I could return home to Sacramento, hoping a week of spring break would help me recharge, enjoy some home-cooked meals, and cuddle my mom's old cat. She used to call it her youngest daughter. I had driven nearly 7 hours down I-5, replaying old playlists and picturing my mom wrapping me in a tight hug as I walked through the door. But the moment I turned into the neighborhood I grew up in, an odd, unsettling feeling hit me. The ivory-colored house with bougainvillea hanging from the porch looked completely unfamiliar. Dad's car wasn't in the driveway. The green curtains my mom loved were gone. And right there on the front lawn, a bold red sign stared back at me. For sale, under contract. I stepped out of the car, a chill running down my spine despite the warm sun. The windows were dark, empty. As I approached the porch, I froze. 3 black garbage bags sat there, dirt-streaked and slumped like someone had kicked them around. I knelt down, opened one, and my heart sank. Inside were my textbooks, a few winter coats I'd left behind because my dorm was too cramped, and a shattered picture frame of my family at Lake Tahoe 3 years ago. I pulled out my phone and immediately called my dad. His voice came through after 3 rings, cold as the wind that swept across the porch. "Hello? Dad? The house. It's gone. There are trash bags with my stuff. What is going on?" There was a pause. Then he answered flatly. "We moved out last week. You're an adult now. Figure it out." Moved out? No one told me. No message, no email, not a word. I choked up, trying to hold the phone steady in my trembling hand. "We didn't think we needed to. You're grown now. Don't be dramatic." Then he hung up. I stood there, stunned, on the porch that had been my home for 19 years. Across the street, a neighbor was watching me from their backyard, equal parts curious and sympathetic, but no one said a word. I called my mom next. No answer. Then my brother, Lucas, 17? Just voicemail. Everyone had vanished, as if I'd never existed. I looked back at the 3 garbage bags, swallowed the lump in my throat, and calmly packed them into the trunk of my car. The rest, my mom's handwritten note from when I got into college, the knitted beanie she made, the broken frame, I placed on the passenger seat. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse like in the movies. Instead, I drove to a roadside motel and paid for a room using the money I'd saved from my part-time job at the campus library. That night, I sat on a frayed blanket staring at the scattered pieces of my life and realized I had nothing left to return to. I used to believe family was the one place that would never shut its doors on me. But maybe I'd been wrong. The next morning, I woke early in a room that reeked of bleach. I sat quietly, watching the sunlight stream through the thin, faded curtains. Something inside me had cracked the night before, but it hadn't made a sound, like a door that had quietly locked itself for good. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. Not from Mom, not from Dad, not even from Lucas. The same kid who used to call me Super Sice when we were little. I tried calling again. Voicemail. And again. Still nothing. That was when I began to accept something I didn't want to believe. They hadn't forgotten me by accident. They had chosen to cut me out of their lives. My mother, Sarah Harper, had always been the woman I admired most. She used to emphasize that family came first. "No matter what happens, we're a unit. No one gets left behind," she'd say over dinner. My father, Doug Harper, was strict but fair. He worked as an electrical engineer at a nearby plant, while my mom held a part-time job at the grocery store. We weren't wealthy, but I never once heard them complain. For 2 years of college, I sent home $100 every month from my scholarship, despite having to juggle my own meals, books, and library shifts. I didn't do it for recognition. I just thought it's what a daughter should do. I was always the easy child. My GPA was 3.9, I didn't party, didn't get into trouble, never caused a scene. When I received my scholarship to Oregon, my mom cried. But no one told me that 2 years later, I would disappear from our family like I had never existed. Even as a child, I'd sometimes felt different. I loved books, while Lucas was all about sports and video games. My parents would smile politely when I talked about my presentations, but they always lit up at Lucas's soccer matches, even when he played for the middle school bench. I wasn't jealous, honestly. I just thought they loved us differently. But now I see. Maybe I was never truly part of their inner circle. That night, I returned to campus earlier than planned, even though the dorms hadn't reopened. I emailed my professor for Community Policy and Justice, Ms. Lana Rivers, who had once encouraged me to apply for a city internship. I just wanted advice. But to my surprise, she responded that very evening. Celeste, if you need a place to stay for a few days, just come to my house. I have a spare room and an old dog who loves meeting new people. I had never been to a teacher's house before, but at that moment, I didn't have many options. When I stepped into the small, oak-colored house with dried lavender hanging from the porch, a dog named Rusty ran up, wagging his tail like I was royalty. Miss Rivers handed me a mug of hot cocoa and a room key like I was her own daughter. Stay as long as you like, but remember this: don't let someone else's silence make you question your worth. I nodded, but inside I was still drowning in unanswered questions. They had disappeared from my life so easily. No message, no hug, no explanation. All that remained of me in my old house were a few items dumped on the porch, like crushed pieces of memory. A few days later, I tried calling Aunt Carol, my mom's younger sister, who'd sent me a birthday card last year. But this time, voicemail said, "This mailbox is no longer in service." I checked Lucas's social media. He had blocked me. The people I used to call family seemed to have agreed to stay silent. I sat there, staring at my phone screen in Ms. Rivers' living room, feeling like a shadow erased from the canvas I once belonged to. I didn't know why. I didn't know what I had done wrong. But I swore I wouldn't let this wound break me. If they wanted to forget me, then I would start over, from the very zero they left me with. But this time, I'd build a world no one could take away from me. Staying at Ms. Rivers' house was the last thing I imagined doing at 19, but sometimes the unexpected is exactly what saves us from the deepest fall. Every evening, I had dinner with her and Rusty, the old wise dog who'd lick my fingers every time I got sad. Miss Rivers never pushed, never asked why. She just let me open up when I was ready. And I did, on a rainy evening when I couldn't even swallow a spoonful of her mushroom soup. "Why did they do that to me?" I whispered. "No warning, no explanation. I just don't understand." She set down her spoon, looked at me gently and said, "There are things we'll never get satisfying answers for. But you're young, Celeste, and you deserve a new beginning. This time, one that's just for you." The next day, she handed me a printed sheet, an announcement for a summer internship at a nonprofit called Bridgeway Legal Center, an organization that provides legal aid for housing insecure individuals and students in need. "You should apply," she said. "The center director, Teresa Caldwell, is an old colleague of mine. She strongly believes in giving second chances to young people." I hesitated. Part of me felt unready. Another part, the one calloused from being hurt, whispered, "Don't rely on anyone again." But then I thought, if I'd been discarded like trash, at the very least I had the right to decide how I stood up again. I applied, and after a short Zoom interview where I talked about why I chose to study public policy, Miss Caldwell said just one sentence. "I see something in your eyes, Celeste. You didn't come here just to learn a job. You came to understand pain and transform it. You're in." I started my internship at the beginning of March, right when Sacramento mornings still cut through your coat like ice. Bridgeway Legal Center was located in an old three-story brick building tucked into a forgotten corner of town, but inside it felt like a real refuge for those who had lost almost everything. On my first day, I was assigned to Ms. Ava Monroe, the lead attorney, around 40 years old with cropped hair and a voice sharp as a razor. But behind that steely gaze was an incredibly kind heart. "Celeste," she said in our first meeting, "this work isn't easy. You'll feel powerless. You'll want to scream because the law doesn't always protect people. But if you stay, we'll change at least a part of this world." I nodded, without hesitation. For the first 2 weeks, I handled files, printed documents, helped translate for Spanish-speaking clients, and prepared legal info boards for community workshops. I didn't complain. In fact, I was grateful to learn something new every single day. Then one Friday afternoon, Miss Ava suddenly pulled me into an emergency staff meeting. A single mother with 2 small children had just been evicted from her apartment, despite having paid in full. The landlord wanted to demolish the building and sell the land to a real estate developer. They gave her only 3 days to leave. "We need someone to talk to her." Ava turned to me. "Think you can try?" I stepped into the interview room, my heart pounding like a drum. The woman sat there, disheveled hair, sunburnt face, red eyes from sleepless nights. She held her little daughter in her arms, maybe 4 years old, who was sucking her thumb and staring at me like I was the only one who could understand. I sat down and gently said, "I know this isn't fair. I know, because I've also had nowhere to go." And for the first time, I saw something soften in her eyes. That evening, Miss Ava came to find me in the records room. "Celeste, you did something that even seasoned attorneys sometimes can't. You made someone feel like they weren't invisible." I just smiled. But deep down, I knew. A new door had opened, and this time, no one could lock it again. After that first interaction with the single mother who'd been evicted, I was no longer just an intern sitting quietly on the sidelines, listening and taking notes. I started to see myself in the people who walked into Bridgeway Legal Center, confused, hurt, and unprotected. Every week brought new faces. Students denied lease renewals despite no violations. Immigrants forced out in the middle of the night because they didn't understand their rights. Elderly tenants pressured into signing early termination forms to make room for renovation bonuses. I used to think law was dry, something reserved for courts and hearings. But here, it was a sheltering umbrella for those who had nowhere else to go, if you knew how to use it right. After 1 month of interning, Ms. Ava allowed me to assist during initial consultations. I sat beside the attorneys, took notes, and occasionally translated into Spanish for older clients who couldn't speak English. And that's when I realized something. Students like me were one of the most overlooked groups in the housing system. Many of my classmates had stories: landlords changing the locks, rent suddenly raised mid-semester, but no one filed complaints because it was too much hassle, they didn't have the time, or worse, they thought they didn't have the right. I documented every situation, compiled statistics, and slowly shaped an idea: a legal aid network specifically for students and young people at risk of losing housing, a place where students could have their rights explained, receive free advice, and be protected when treated unfairly. I called the project Hearthline because I wanted it to feel like a warm line, leading young people back to a sense of safety, however temporary. One afternoon in early April, while the entire office was buried in a class action case against a landlord who'd illegally evicted an entire building, I brought my draft proposal to Ava. She flipped through each page, nodding slowly. "You've thought this through, haven't you?" "Since the day I was left on that porch," I said with a faint smile. "I don't want anyone else to go through that alone." Ava was silent for a moment, then pulled a folder from her drawer. "There's a grant program from the Cedar Grove Foundation. They offer $25,000 for community initiatives led by students. The deadline is 3 weeks away. Want to give it a shot?" I nodded so hard I knocked over my water glass. "I'll do it, even if I have to pull 10 all-nighters." And honestly, I nearly did. I wrote, revised, deleted, rewrote, line by line, purpose, operations, target groups, metrics. I asked Ms. Rivers to read the draft, Ava to fine-tune the legal content, and even got a classmate to design a clean logo and layout. 4 days before the deadline, I submitted the final proposal, 28 pages long, including Ava's letter of recommendation and a short survey of over 70 students who'd experienced rental issues. I didn't expect too much, I just thought, if I don't get it, I'll find another way. But 10 days later, an email from the Cedar Grove Foundation arrived. I reread it 5 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. We are thrilled to inform you that Hearthline has been selected for full funding in the amount of $25,000. We believe your project is not only viable but essential and impactful for the student community. I screamed in Miss Rivers' kitchen, causing Rusty to bark like there was a fire. She hugged me so tightly I almost cried. The very next day, I received an invitation to present at the Next Voices in Advocacy conference in San Francisco, a statewide event showcasing young social initiatives. Ava simply rested a hand on my shoulder and said, "Celeste, some people wait 10 years to be heard. You got their attention in 3 months. Don't be afraid." But truthfully, I wasn't afraid. I felt like I had finally become part of something bigger than myself. 6 months after finding my first footing in the world of justice and compassion, the same phone that once felt like my lifeline became a haunting echo of the past. It started with a short message from Mom. "Hope you're doing well. I miss you. Call me back." I stared at it on the screen, my heart unmoved. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply. I left it there like an unwanted keepsake, a scar to remind me never to forget what it felt like to stand before a locked house, with 3 trash bags full of memories I once thought were love. 3 days later came another message from Dad. "It's time to grow up, Celeste. Cutting off contact like this is disrespectful. We're family." Family? I wanted to laugh. Family doesn't disappear without a word. Family doesn't sell the house, change their phone numbers, block you on social media, and then 6 months later act like I was the one who cut ties. The messages kept coming, day after day, week after week. Sometimes it was my dad's cold, reprimanding voice. Other times, my mom's desperate pleas. Then, even Lucas, my younger brother who had wiped me from his life, sent a voice message. "I know you're mad, but don't make this a big deal. Everyone misses you." Not one of them acknowledged what they had done wrong. Not one apology. Just, "Why won't you answer? You're being so cold. We're family." They didn't understand, or didn't want to. That blood doesn't give you the right to abandon someone and then demand their love in return. I continued working at Bridgeway Legal Center. My Hearthline project had supported over 30 students in its first 3 months. From group counseling sessions on campus, I expanded outreach to local high school seniors preparing to leave home, organizing talks on tenants' rights, legal procedures, and self-advocacy. I used to think that once I was stable and doing well, the pain would ease. But every unknown call with a Sacramento area code, every email titled, "Did you read my letter?" dragged me right back into the dark place I'd worked so hard to escape. One evening, while I was reviewing case files for a tenant complaint at the office, Ava quietly set a cup of tea on my desk. "Emily again?" she asked, not needing my answer. I nodded. "Have you thought about having one conversation with them just to close it off?" I looked at her. "I don't think they want closure. They just want me back, but only on their terms." Ava paused for a moment, then said, "People often confuse regret over what they've lost with regret over who they've hurt. Those aren't the same." I knew that better than anyone. My family didn't regret hurting me. They regretted that I didn't come back. That week, I blocked all their numbers. This time, for good. I had spent the first 6 months of my adult life caught between 2 worlds, the past and the present. And I knew I couldn't build anything lasting with the shards of the past dangling over me. 3 days later, I received a handwritten letter at Bridgeway's office. The return name was Sarah Harper. My mom. I nearly tore it up on the spot, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was just a single handwritten line. If one day you want to know the truth, call Aunt April. Aunt April? I frowned. She was my mom's cousin, lived in Oregon. I had never thought she had anything to do with this. I set the letter down, my mind spinning. Even if they were trying to pull me back through someone else, it only proved they hadn't changed. I texted Ava. If I ever face them again, it won't be to let them explain. It'll be so I can make clear what's no longer acceptable. Ava replied with a nodding emoji. And one sentence. When you're ready. Only when you're ready. That afternoon, as I was helping a freshman student register for emergency housing aid, the landline at Bridgeway rang. I almost ignored it, thinking it was maintenance, but something in me said to pick it up. An elderly woman's voice came through, soft and shaky. Is this Celeste Harper? Yes, this is she. I'm Helen Morris, your family's former neighbor, back in Sacramento. I'm sorry to call you out of the blue, but there's something I think you need to know. I held my breath. Mrs. Helen explained that 3 days ago someone had snuck into our old house, which was now vacant because the new buyer had unexpectedly backed out. Police came to investigate and found an envelope deliberately left on the porch, clearly labeled, "To be forwarded, Celeste Harper, urgent." Since they couldn't locate my current address, the police gave the envelope to Mrs. Helen, who used to chat with my mom now and then. I opened it because I was afraid it might be something dangerous, but it turned out to be paperwork from a law firm in Texas. Seemed to be about some sort of inheritance. I froze. Could you read it to me, please? Of course. I've kept it safe. I heard the sound of paper rustling, then her voice began to read slowly. Her words blurred in my mind as certain phrases crashed like thunder in my ears. According to the estate division documents of Mrs. Elizabeth Moreno, maternal grandmother of Celeste Harper, the legal heir is Miss Celeste Harper, born March 16, 2005, currently a U.S. citizen, included ownership rights to 2 properties successfully sold in March of last year. Total sale value $438,700 after taxes, fees, and legal processing. Then I couldn't speak. My grandmother, Elizabeth, was a Mexican woman who had lived in San Antonio her entire life and passed away when I was only 11. I still remember the last time I saw her, she held my hand tightly and whispered something in Spanish. I didn't fully understand, but I could feel the love in her voice. And now, she had left me an inheritance I never even knew about. I asked Mrs. Helen, "Does the letter mention when the estate was settled?" Yes. Here it is. The estate division agreement was finalized and notification sent on March 15th last year. It felt like time snapped backward. March 15th last year, not even 3 weeks before I came home to find my belongings stuffed into trash bags on the porch. That could not be a coincidence. They knew. They knew I had an inheritance. And they abandoned me right after. That night, I sat still on the bedroom floor, beside Rusty, the old dog who had slept at the foot of my bed since the day I arrived at Miss Rivers' house. In my hand was a copy of the inheritance notice, which Mrs. Helen had scanned and emailed me. I called the law firm listed in the letter, Prescott and Lane. A polite voice confirmed the documents were valid, the properties had been sold, and the funds were currently held in a trust account, awaiting identity confirmation from the rightful heir, me. When I asked why I had never been notified, the assistant on the other end hesitated. We sent the first notice to the most recently registered address, based on information provided by your mother. When we didn't get a response, we were instructed to continue contact through your legal guardians at the time, your parents. I hung up, hands trembling. What I felt wasn't rage. It was a chill so deep it made my skin crawl. They hadn't left me because of some family conflict or financial pressure. They did it after hiding an inheritance worth nearly $500,000. And worse, they had no intention of telling me. Presenting to the Watkins Foundation Grant Board was one of the most important moments of my life. Hearthline had entered its expansion phase, and we needed a grant of $300,000 to scale across the state. I had prepared for weeks. Data, testimonials, impact reports, everything neatly printed in a navy blue packet to match the blazer Ava gave me as my battle armor. As I entered the Watkins Foundation boardroom, my heart raced, but held steady. I could feel the focused attention of the board members, business leaders, social advocates, even a retired judge. We presented the impact Hearthline had made, the cases we had resolved, and our plans to build a free legal advisory network in community colleges. Ava stood beside me, guiding the legal framework and long-term vision. Everything was going smoothly until the door opened. An event staff member whispered something to the foundation director. She nodded, then turned to me with an apologetic look. "Celeste, there are a few people waiting outside. They say they're your family. They're quite insistent about seeing you." I froze. The room seemed to slow down, all sounds fading into the distance. Ava gently squeezed my wrist and whispered, "It's your call, but if you need me, I'll be right here." I took a deep breath. "Tell them I'll meet them after the presentation. This is my time, not theirs." The presentation ended to applause. I'm not even sure what I said in the last 10 minutes. All I know is that every word came from the strength of the wounds that had made me who I am. When I walked out to the reception area, they were waiting. My mother, my father, Lucas. 3 familiar faces, now strangers. My mother stood up quickly, eyes red and watery. "Celeste." I held up a hand. "Not here, we'll talk somewhere else." We sat at a small cafe nearby. I chose a table on the patio, where the wind was just strong enough to keep me alert but not enough to blow away the self-worth I had rebuilt from ashes. They sat across from me, stiff, unsure where to begin. I spoke first. "This won't take long. I want the truth. Are you here for me or for Elizabeth's money?" My mother burst into tears. My father looked away. Lucas bowed his head. "We made mistakes. We were overwhelmed, panicked. When we found out about the inheritance, your father—" "Let me ask again, when did you find out?" My father replied, his voice gravelly. "March of last year. The lawyers sent a letter. At that time we were financially stuck. I'd lost my job. Your mother was working part-time. The house was about to be foreclosed. We didn't know what to do." I gripped my cold coffee cup tightly. "And the solution was to sell the house, toss your daughter out, hide everything, and pretend I never existed?" My mother choked out. "We meant to tell you. But then we got scared. Scared you'd hate us. Scared you'd think we were using you." Pay me what I thought. "Because you already did the worst, before I could feel anything," Lucas whispered. "Can you ever forgive them? I know they were wrong, I know." I turned to the boy I used to carry to school when he was in first grade, now taller than me by half a head. "You stayed silent when they did it. You blocked me when they tried to erase me from their lives. You're not a victim, Lucas. You're complicit." Silence hung for a long moment. "Finally," my mother said. "Celeste, no matter what, we're still family." I stood up and pulled a stack of papers from my jacket pocket. Copies of the inheritance notice, delivery dates, recipients' signatures, everything documented. "No, blood isn't a shield you get to use and discard." I placed money on the table for all 3 coffees, then looked at them one last time. "I don't need your redemption. I just need you to stay out of my life, the way you already did. But this time, for good." And I walked away. I didn't look back. 3 days after that final meeting with my parents and Lucas, I got a call from a landline with a New York area code. I was in the campus library, editing the Hearthline expansion plan for the next quarter. My head was spinning, my heart pounding, not out of fear, but because I'd learned to recognize the moment just before life changes. A man's voice came through, clear and full of energy. Congratulations, Celeste Harper. The Watkins Foundation is officially awarding the Hearthline Project full funding, $300,000 for 3 years plus $50,000 in operational support. And we'll connect you with mentors from our Social Impact Partner Network. Are you ready to level up? I laughed through a breath, a soft laugh, tight in my throat, not from surprise, but from pure emotion. After hanging up, I sat still for a few minutes. It felt like I'd climbed a mountain I used to only see from afar. But I didn't just climb it. I built each step with my bare hands, even when they bled. I called Ava first. She screamed so loud I had to step out of the library. Then I called Ms. Rivers, the one who had taken me in like family from the day I lost everything. She didn't say anything, just sent a heart emoji, and I knew she was crying. A week later, I received an invitation from the TV program Morning Perspectives, known for interviewing young people making meaningful social contributions. I almost said no. I hated the spotlight. But Ava said just one sentence. It's not because you need to be famous. It's because someone out there needs your story to know they're not alone. The interview was filmed in a brightly lit studio. I wore a simple white shirt, tied my hair back, and stepped in wearing the only pair of shoes I had ever bought with my own paycheck. The host, Nora Winston, read my bio aloud. From a college student abandoned by her family to the founder of a housing support project awarded a major grant by the Watkins Foundation, Celeste Harper, 20 years old, is reshaping how young people understand justice and the right to a safe home. I'm not trying to hide the past. I'm not painting them black, but I'm not sugarcoating anything either. I'm simply telling the truth. I used to think I needed family to survive, but after being left on the porch, I learned sometimes salvation doesn't come from where you were born, but from where you're seen and heard. Hearthline was built from the ashes they left behind. 2 weeks after the show aired, I received hundreds of messages from students, single mothers, veterans, people who had experienced homelessness, and those currently living through what I once did. One person wrote, "I was ready to give up everything until I saw you on TV. You didn't just save others, you saved me, someone who thought no one believed in them anymore. My family abandoned me too, but now I know I'm not the only one." Among those messages, not a single line came from Sarah, Doug, or Lucas Harper. No new messages, no apologies. Nothing more. And strangely, I didn't feel empty. I felt relief. I know they saw the show. Maybe they silently watched me sit on that stage and tell my story, and realized there was no place left for them in it. On the first day at Hearthline's new office, housed in a small building near the community college, I taped a sign right below the stylized roof logo at the entrance. "This is a home built by choice, not blood." I walked inside and saw volunteers busy organizing folders, students lining up for info, and Ava talking to a young couple. And I knew I had built something no one could ever take from me. The family I was born into might have cast me aside, but the family I chose, the people here today, is where I truly belong. Closing message. Sometimes, the people who share your blood will leave you stranded, but the ones who stood with you in the dark, those are the hands that will hold yours as you walk into the light. And sometimes, the family you create is stronger than the one you were born into. Celeste's story is a powerful reminder that betrayal can come from those closest to us, but it doesn't define our worth. In real life, not everyone is lucky enough to have a loving family, but everyone deserves a community, a chosen family, where they're respected and protected. No matter where you start, you have the power to rise, to rewrite your life through resilience and kindness. Sometimes, the greatest losses lead to the strongest foundation. What do you think about Celeste's journey? Have you ever experienced something similar? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next powerful and heartfelt stories about family and life.